alleviated, unwind, and heal another heartache. I fall behind, but doing nothing at all. We're young, it's ready for the taking. You're gone, another chance I wasted. Everything's fine, I'm doing nothing at all. I feel 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 nothing at all.
Please have your attention. I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Loud, unfiltered, and live nationwide. It's the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central.
This is the year, even in a first-year system with Mike McCarthy, that Dallas has to win the NFC East. They have to. If Dallas doesn't win the NFC East this year, something is majorly wrong.
Want to chime in? Join the live chat on either Facebook or Twitter at Cream City Central. Your comment could be featured on today's show. From the WWSP 90 FM studios in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, here's Alex Strouf.
Oh, yeah, we're ready to go yet again, a Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. Alongside producer Kyle, I am Alex Strouf. So thrilled to be back for another week of the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central. Hello to Kathleen. Hello to Kyle joining us in the live chats. Other Kyle, we have producer Kyle in front of me. How are you, buddy? Happy Tuesday.
You know, it's been a rough start to my week.
Why is this? Oh, no. That's not the way I like to start out.
Been a little tired. Got a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, you poor baby.
But Keegan, thanks, Keegan. It's the dudes. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, Keegan. That. Kevin says hello in the live chat. A lot of K's coming through. Kathleen, Kyle, Kevin,
well,
Keegan.
Let me point out first that Kathleen is my mom.
Yes, I know that's her mom. Every episode, I think.
Almost, I think, every episode.
I think your mother is our biggest fan, which says more about us than it does about her. But nonetheless, we appreciate all of you dropping by here to kick off the week. I hope all of you had a good holiday weekend. How was your holiday, my friend?
I didn't do much.
You didn't do much?
No. I know we want to get into this, so I'll just get into it now. Talking about people, lighting off fireworks and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, this is something that I want to talk about, right? Because I'm laying in bed at 1 a.m. last night, and I hear fireworks going off. And it's a Monday night. The 4th of July was on Saturday. And I feel like an old man yelling at a cloud because why are you shooting off fireworks 3 days or I guess 2 days yesterday after the holiday? And I don't think it's going to slow down, right? Because it's usually the entire month of July where people decide that shooting off fireworks is acceptable. Whereas, like I said, I feel like an old man yelling at a cloud. Just save it for the day. And then if you don't use them all, I guess maybe wait until a weekend. But a Monday night at 1 a.m., really? Not necessary. But that's my little rant to start off.
Well, I was pretty fortunate by my house. We had one person light up fireworks.
Were they good?
They had a party. They were pretty good. They had a little party. I say little, but there was a decent amount of people there. A couple doors down, but they were done by like 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Okay, see that's okay with me.
That's all we've had.
And it was a Saturday, so I'm good with all that.
Yeah,
I'm good with all that. Cool. So big show today. We might as well preview. So later this hour, we'll get Paul Bretl over from DairylandExpress.com. We'll talk a lot of Packers, a lot of Brewers. But we're going to save a lot of the Brewers talk until hour number 2, as Brewers right-handed pitcher, and he is a product of right here. I even wore the shirt today of right here at UW Stevens Point. JP Feyereisen will join us at 4:30 to talk about. They're calling it Spring Training 2.0. I want to call it Summer Camp. I guess I'll get his opinion on what we should call it exactly, because it's been a weird shift in what has become spring training 2.0, if you will. So we'll talk a lot about that, his time here at Stevens Point, and even more. I mean, he's playing for his favorite team growing up. He went to River Falls High School in River Falls. So a lot of Wisconsin ties for Feyereisen. So we will get into all that later in the show. He joins at 4:30. As I mentioned, we have our fight night topic coming up in hour 2. That is the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio. We'll jump into that more in the 4 o'clock hour. So big show, and obviously a big headline coming out of yesterday. So let's dive into it. If we're good with that, Kyle, we might as well introduce as well. The phone lines are wide open. If you want to get through, I recommend calling now. Anything sports related or even just 4th of July related, whatever you got on your mind, phone lines are open. 877-8-STROUF or 877-878-7683. You can find that on the bottom throughout the next 2 hours as those phone lines are wide open. All right, let's dive into it. As I assume most of you, if not all of you, have not been living under a rock the last 24 or so hours. The reigning Super Bowl MVP, the year before the most valuable player in the National Football League, only done with 3 years of his career, Patrick Mahomes, has inked a 10-year, $450 million extension. So his contract now sitting at 12 years remaining, $503 million. That's $500 million for Patrick Mahomes. Now, the big takeaway from this is Patrick Mahomes has already changed the game, and he's changing how we view contracts. So I'll dive into that in a second. But I think it says a lot about Patrick Mahomes that the takeaway from him signing this huge contract is not, what the heck are the Chiefs doing? A 10-year deal for a quarterback, that's insane. Nobody's saying that. And the people that are saying that we'll address in a little bit. But right now, not many people are questioning why the Chiefs inked Patrick Mahomes to a 10-year extension, because he is the only guy in football you can make a case for a 10-year extension for. And it doesn't sound entirely insane. And that's why I mention Patrick Mahomes has not only changed the game, he is changing the way that we view contracts. And when this moment happened in 2017, we never thought 3 years later we'd be talking about a 10-year contract. But when this moment happened, and since this moment has happened, he is changing the way we view the quarterback position and the contractual ties to it.
With the 10th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Patrick Mahomes II.
And that eruption from the crowd only got louder and louder over the course of 3 years as Patrick Mahomes brought home a Most Valuable Player award, a Lombardi Trophy, and a Super Bowl MVP award to Kansas City. The eruptions have only become louder, and rightfully so. So the Chiefs organization says, why are we wasting time? Why would we wait on this? We know we're going to want Patrick in white and red for the next, you name it, how long. Quarterbacks play until 40 years old now. Look at Brett Favre. Look at Tom Brady. Look at Drew Brees. Look at what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. Quarterbacks play until they're 40. Patrick Mahomes is 24. Let me repeat that. Patrick Mahomes is 24 years old, and he's done all of that. Can you imagine doing anything of that realm at 24 years old? I'm 21. He's 24. He's won a Super Bowl MVP, a league's most valuable player, and he just signed a contract for $500 million. And nobody is batting an eye at that. And that is just funny to me. Because when Aaron Rodgers, we'll remember, he signed a ginormous, or what we thought was ginormous at the time, in 2013. He signed that 5-year, $110 million extension with Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers did. And the reaction from Packers fans at that point were, okay, this makes sense. Aaron Rodgers deserves to be the highest player in football. And that 5 years, $110 million is like a quarter, a dollar sign. I mean, it's half essentially of what Patrick Mahomes got. The only thing, nobody's batting an eye because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football the last 2 years, has a very good chance to be the best quarterback in football ever. And this just makes sense for Kansas City. It's absolutely the right move. But I want to address the people that are saying, well, this isn't smart. 10 years? That's a really long time. 10 years, $500 million. How are they going to be able to sign teammates? Oh, my goodness. The way I look at it is, do you really need to surround Patrick Mahomes with unbelievable talent? Like through the roof, 10 out of 10 talent? No. Plus, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are both locked up through 2022. So you've got 3 more years of Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. They just drafted a very solid running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That offense is okay for at least another, give or take, 3 years at the very least. And 12, in fact, in terms of the best quarterback in football. Kevin Hansen chiming in on the Facebook chat. What happens if he gets hurt? Well, then we can look at it as a bad deal, but you can't assume that's going to happen. No bad vibes for Kansas City, if you will. They don't want to look at Patrick Mahomes as worst case scenario, right? We saw what happened with a guy like Alex Smith once he landed in Washington. Nobody thinks that's going to happen to Patrick Mahomes. They think Patrick Mahomes is going to play football until he's 42 years old and probably retire as the best to ever do it. Because if you look at what he's done just the past 2 years, his rookie year, he barely played. The past 2 years, threw 50 touchdowns in a season. He won an MVP. He won a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl MVP. And he's doing it at an unbelievable rate. He's doing it at an unprecedented rate. Greg Williams chimes in, yes, the clause in the contract, $117 million, dollars guaranteed on the injury side of things. So that is a clause in the contract as well. I was going to get to that, but Greg Williams beat me to the punch in the Facebook chat. Appreciate you chiming in. I should remind you, phone line's wide open, 877-8-STROUF, 877-878-7683. If you want to talk anything about this Mahomes contract, phone lines are open, so feel free to reach out. But let's talk about Patrick Mahomes reinventing this quarterback position and reinventing the quarterback contract. I referenced the Aaron Rodgers contract a little bit ago. He signed it in 2013, 5 years, $110 million. And we went bananas. As Packers fans, as media personalities, everybody said, yeah, this makes sense. Aaron Rodgers should be the highest paid quarterback in football, but this is nuts. And now looking back on that contract, it's not that much money in today's NFL because caps are going up. Maybe not this year given COVID, but assuming things get back to at least semi-normal, cap space is going to continue to go up for years and decades and centuries to come, more than likely. So this $500 million contract over 10 years for Patrick Mahomes is not the craziest thing in football. And it is not the craziest thing that could occur. This is completely the right move by Kansas City. Entirely the right move by Kansas City. Because you don't want anybody else to play quarterback on that team. And this guy is the perfect guy for a 10-year type contract. Now, this leads the conversation at least a little bit a different direction. What other quarterback is going to sign a deal like this? I don't think Lamar Jackson will. I don't think Baltimore will offer him a 10-year type contract. And maybe after this year, I think would probably be the right time to extend Lamar Jackson. I think they'll extend him by all means, but I don't think he's the next quarterback to go sign a 10-year deal. And you look at a guy, maybe Deshaun Watson has been in that conversation. Does Deshaun Watson want to stay in Houston? I don't know if I'd want to if I was Deshaun Watson, especially for 8-10 years. I think Deshaun Watson is probably the next big free agent name we get. I don't know how long he's going to want to stay in Houston. Dak Prescott, of course, is the quarterback we've talked a lot about. He signed that $31 million contract tender, and now he's got the opportunity to sign a long-term deal. But will it be in the ballpark of $500 million? No, I don't think so in the slightest. Is it going to be in the ballpark of 10 years? I think we'll be looking at closer to 4 for a guy like Dak Prescott. The one name that comes to mind for the next guy that could potentially sign a long-term contract like this is Kyler Murray. Now, hear me out. Obviously, a first overall pick, only coming off of his first season in which he won Rookie of the Year. But Arizona's on the come-up. A second-year head coach, a second-year quarterback, a top 3 wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. Absolutely, 100%. I think it makes sense for a guy like Kyler Murray. Obviously, we have to see what he does this year and maybe even next before a long-term extension is in the realm of possibility. But Kyler Murray makes sense to me as the next guy that could sign anything like this. But I don't think it'll make him the highest paid North American athlete of all time like Patrick Mahomes did on Monday. And Patrick Mahomes is a guy that was drafted 10th overall. So if there's any Bears fans in the chat, I'd like to have a word with you briefly, because this is the most painful missed draft pick I think you could ever talk about, right? Chicago back in 2017 was set to draft 3rd overall. They traded up to that 2nd spot, and I think we remember what they did, but just in case we want to track your memory, this is what they did by moving up from the 3rd pick to the 2nd pick in 2017.
With the 2nd pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Mitchell Trubisky, quarterback, North Carolina.
Yeah, and the crowd was just thrilled about that one, weren't they? Mitch Trubisky became a Chicago Bear at the 2nd overall pick. Then 8 picks later is when Kansas City went and got the $1 billion man.
With the 10th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Patrick Mahomes, the 2nd.
Now, that was pick 10 versus pick 2. And Chicago missed on Watson and Mahomes. But just because I like making fun of Bears fans, here's what it would have sounded like if the Bears would have done something right for once.
With the 2nd pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Patrick Mahomes, the 2nd.
Yeah, that would have been fun, wouldn't it have been? That's just too bad. So Patrick Mahomes signs a 10-year, $450 million extension with Kansas City on Monday. Just unbelievable. Phone lines open 877-8-STROUF, 877-878-7683. Producer Kyle, I've got to get your thoughts on this. We got to chat on this a little bit if you have a second. I'm not sure if you're on the phone or whatever, but okay, you are free.
I got a lot of thoughts about this.
Yeah, go ahead. Rattle them off.
So on my way home from work this morning, I was listening to our local radio station, 107.5 The Fan. And they were talking about this exact topic. Marcus and Rookie were talking about, it's the biggest topic in sports right now.
Yeah.
Is Mahomes signing his contract. And they went through the first 9 picks before Mahomes was taken at 10, traded up 4 to be taken at 10.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the same thing right now. When you look at the first 9 teams and their quarterback situation, number 1, you look at Cleveland. Cleveland took Myles Garrett, number 1 overall.
Oh, man. He swings a mean helmet.
So, before I get any further, I want to say first, hindsight's 2020.
Well, right. Of
and
course.
what I mean by that is, I remember vividly watching the 2017 draft was one of the first drafts that I watched with a different mindset, with not a fan's mindset, but just a different mindset. And I remember watching, and they were talking, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, all the cast of characters that are on draft night. Mitch Trubisky is the second coming of the next great quarterback, and all this, and they're hyping this Mitch Trubisky up. And I remember when the Chiefs traded up for Mahomes, everybody thought they were trading up to take Watson,
Right.
and they took Mahomes, and everyone was like, What are you doing? The Mahomes isn't going to be good. He's a project quarterback. He's going to have to sit behind Alex Smith, who still has, what did they say, 4 or 5 years of good.
Yeah, he had 4 at that point. Yeah.
Okay. I hate to play devil's advocate for the Chicago Bears because I hate the Chicago Bears as much as the next Packers fan does. But you have to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit. Because, I mean, Mitch Trubisky was the highly touted quarterback, although I never was really high on him because he only had one good season at North Carolina. Actually, one average season at North Carolina, I should say. And
everybody thought he was NFL ready, but he really, I mean, looking back on that, right, you mentioned hindsight is 2020, Kyle. Why was he so hyped up? I mean, I wasn't that high personally. I really wasn't. I mean, I liked Mahomes, but I wasn't high on him being this darn good. Deshaun Watson, obviously, we all knew him because he played at Clemson.
yeah.
But a guy that went to North Carolina, the ACC is not good at football. He doesn't have competition there. I mean, when you're playing Duke in football, come on. I mean, obviously, your tape's not going to be that great, right? We can make the same case for Jordan Love, of course, but I think far and away, looking back on it, Deshaun Watson probably should have been the top QB in that class.
Probably. And the thing that really gets people, and I notice this a lot as history has gone on, I noticed that the more successful quarterbacks in NFL and in college history, I should say, and more successful college quarterbacks, ones that win, Heisman or whatever, they don't seem to do well in the NFL. I don't know why. Like, you talk about, guys that have just flopped in the NFL after being, these highly touted college quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota comes to mind right away. He's still in the league, but obviously hasn't lived up to the second overall pick that he was.
Right.
So that would really be the only knock I really had on Deshaun Watson, was that he had the makings of being a typical highly successful college quarterback that wasn't going to make it in the NFL. Obviously not the case. Deshaun Watson, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, hindsight is 2020. We keep saying that, but that was a really interesting draft class.
But I want to get back to my original point as to why I came on here. Going down the top, we're going to go top 9. Obviously, Mahomes was drafted 10th. The Browns have been looking for a quarterback since the beginning of time, or since Bernie Kosar was, gracing the field. Chicago Bears, they drafted Mitch Trubisky, traded up one spot to draft Mitch Trubisky. So, and then now they have Nick Foles. So their quarterback situation is up in the air. The Niners, they didn't have Garoppolo at the time. They traded for Garoppolo during the 2017 season. So they were still looking for a quarterback at this point. The Jaguars, they have Gardner Minshew now, which take that for what it's worth.
They didn't then.
They didn't then. They have him now.
They had Bortles then, right?
They had Bortles.
Well, they were still believing in Bortles.
Bortles magic. The Titans were believing in.
That was the year. That was the year Bortles. Well, maybe not Bortles led, but Bortles and company went to the AFC Championship game in 2017. Okay, yeah.
Behind their good defense, not necessarily Bortles, but take it for what it's worth. And the Titans had Ryan Tannehill. No, I'm sorry. The Titans
had Mariota. Yeah,
they had Mariota, who they still had, invested time in. The Jets, I don't know who the Jets had at quarterback at this time. It wasn't
17.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Darnold was the next year. 17.
I don't know if it was Fitzpatrick or not. It might have been Fitzpatrick.
Oh man, that's a good question. They weren't good. I can tell you that. Yeah.
So and then the Chargers had Philip Rivers, who obviously he's not there anymore, but it was on kind of the twilight of his career at this point. The Panthers had Cam Newton. And the Bengals had Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton, as Marcus Eversole says, Andy Dalton is just Andy Dalton. And you can't really –
that's true.
He's not really that special. So you look at all those teams, and you look at, obviously, with what we're saying, hindsight's 2020, the Browns, Bears, Jaguars, Jets, Chargers, Panthers, and Bengals are all teams that need a quarterback at this point. The only teams I'm leaving out are the Titans, because they have a firm investment in Ryan Tannehill, and the Niners with a firm investment in Jimmy Garoppolo. So all these teams that drafted ahead of the Chiefs now 3 years later are looking for a quarterback when they could have taken Patrick Mahomes.
See, but yeah, and again, this is kind of a hindsight is 2020 moment though, Kyle, right? Because if you're confident in your quarterback then, I mean, obviously you can look back and say, okay, yeah, he turned out to be a pile of trash for our organization, but again, hindsight's 2020. These guys were invested in who they were for the reason. I mean, and you look at like a team like Jacksonville. They had Bortles. They drafted him high, and he did and I keep saying that in like air quotes because it's not like he had a great season by any means, but he did get them to the AFC Championship game in 2017. A guy like Mariota, we didn't know was going to fall off the way he did. Yeah, so, and it was still early in a lot of those guys too. So you don't want to do what Arizona did this past in 18 and 19, where they go Rosen 10th overall, and then the next year they draft Kyler Murray 1st overall. I mean,
yeah.
So right. I see your point nonetheless. I mean, Mahomes probably, if we would have known 3 years ago what we know now, he would have been picked by the Browns 1st overall, and Myles Garrett wouldn't be the first pick. So
if Mahomes was as highly touted as Mitch Trubisky would have been going into that draft, Patrick Mahomes would have been number 1 overall.
He probably would have been number 2. I mean, Myles Garrett was far and away the best
true.
prospect, or at least we thought at that point. Now he is on the commissioner's exempt list for swinging a helmet at Mason Rudolph. But nonetheless, he was he was a big talent. And it's weird to look back on that draft because nobody knew what was going to become of a guy like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I quickly bought in 2 weeks into Mahomes as a starter, right? And I assume a lot of us did. He put up 10 touchdowns in his first 2 weeks as a starter, 9 touchdowns, something just outrageously bananas like that. And from there on out, I mean, it has been the Mahomes show all around in the National Football League. I mean, this guy has been far and away the best quarterback we've seen. I mean, this is the best 2-year stretch of a quarterback I remember. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that in the comment section or on the phone line. Is this the best 2-year quarterback stretch we've ever seen? And now, is it realistic to believe that Patrick Mahomes can maintain this level of success for the next 12, the next 10, the next 8, the next 6, whatever, whatever the timeline is? Is it realistic that Patrick Mahomes can duplicate what he did from 2018 through 2020? I think so. I think it's at least partially realistic. He hasn't shown that he's fallen off, right? He got hurt for a period of time in 2019. A lot of people forget this. When the Packers played the Chiefs in 2019, Mahomes wasn't the quarterback because he was sidelined. But he came back from an injury and played better than he did prior to the injury. It almost seemed, right? As he rattled off that crazy comeback victory in the playoffs in the divisional round, and then obviously rattled a run all the way to the Super Bowl trophy. I mean, is it absolutely believable that Mahomes can maintain the success? I think it is. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this in either the live chat or the phone line before we go to a break in about 2 minutes. Mahomes is a freak of nature. Mahomes possesses every intangible and every aspect of a quarterback that you want. The guy is just characteristically off the charts. His IQ is bananas. And he might be the most well-liked athlete of the 21st century. I mean, he's up there with Jordan had his haters, right? Jordan had his haters. Has there ever been an athlete as universally liked, especially in the NFL, like Patrick Mahomes? I can't think of anybody. Maybe Peyton Manning, but I still think Peyton Manning had his haters. I mean, has there ever been a quarterback this talented, this unreal, this off the charts, and as well as this most universally liked athlete I remember in a long, long time? I don't know any Mahomes haters. Do you? I can't think of one, because Mahomes is just that good. He's that smart. He's that kind. I mean, everything about Mahomes says quarterback, and his contract really says quarterback now. 10 years, $450 million extension for Patrick Mahomes, inked on Monday with the Kansas City Chiefs. We will get Paul Bretl's reaction of the contract extension and a whole lot more on the Packers and the Brewers next on the Alex Strouf Show. We'll take a timeout. Paul Bretl on the other side. Back after this.
He is the top 5 right tackle in the league. There's no question. If you would have told me the Packers could have signed a top 5 right tackle in the league, I'd been like, yes, please do it. But clearly Brian Gutekunst had other ideas, and we've seen guys leave the Packers and then kind of fade away. Maybe 1 or 2 years later. Perfect example, Clay Matthews got released by the Rams. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Demarius Randall, Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, there's been a few guys who've kind of just faded away after they left the Packers, and that tells me that Brian Gutekunst does have a good gauge as to where his roster's at. Yeah. So the argument for leaving Bulaga alone, letting him go to the Chargers, is because, so let's say the Packers have $30 million to spend, and they did not spend it on Bulaga. They actually saved money sending Bulaga out to the Chargers, or not sending him, but letting him walk. And signing Christian Kirksey and Rick Wagner together, those two players, their contracts equals $24 million. So they save roughly about $6 million. And you know what? They even add, we'll just throw Mercedes Lewis contract in there. It's $2.25 million. So you still got looking at about 3.5. So it's interesting to see kind of the way these numbers work. And Bulaga's contract alone would have covered all three of those players. So I think that's where Brian Gutekunst does the math.
The Lambeau Lead, Cream City Central's official Packers podcast. Download wherever you get your podcasts.
My first segment I am calling Just the Tip-Off, and that is my best Bob Uecker impression. Tell me what you think. I'll work on it, see if I can get that a little better. But this segment, Just the Tip-Off, the name, Just the Tip, I'm going to give you a few ideas that are just the tip of a good idea. They're not completely fully formed. Some things that are bouncing around in my head. And Tip-Off, of course, it is the first segment of this show. So last night, the Bucks were playing the Lakers. Obviously, LeBron James plays for the Lakers. One thing LeBron has put all over social media the last few months this season is his idea, and I believe he's tried to trademark it, is Taco Tuesday. He started that on social media, him and his family and Anthony Davis and some other players every Tuesday, or as many Tuesdays as possible, get together and have tacos. And he tried to trademark that, and he's trying to make some money off that. And I was thinking, what would Giannis's equivalent of Taco Tuesday be? Obviously, he had his run-in at Bel Air Cantina a few years ago, so probably doesn't want to go the taco route. Maybe he wants to play into his Greek heritage a little bit. So I had the idea for Souvlaki Saturdays. Just an idea, just the tip of an idea. Maybe that'll make its way to Giannis, and he'll run with it. Who knows? Small Ball, Milwaukee Bucks micro podcast, presented by Cream City Central. Download wherever you get your podcasts.
Back here on the Alex Strouf Show, and we go to the phone lines now, as this is a conversation I'm very excited about, a guy that knows a lot about a lot, and I don't say that about many people, so take the compliment. It is the editor and lead writer for Dairyland Express, one of the co-hosts on one of our favorite podcasts here at the Alex Strouf Show, the Pack-A-Day podcast, and a writer for Cheesehead TV. It is a friend of mine, Paul Bretl. Paul, thanks so much for taking the time, man. Always good to chat with you.
Yeah, Alex, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well.
All well on this end, and back at you. I know I asked in the break, but I'll ask you again. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's good during these really, really weird times.
Yes, we are. Thank you for asking.
Of course, man. That's always good to hear. So before we dive into Packers and Brewers stuff, I got to get your reaction on this Mahomes contract. I mean, it is ginormous. 10 years, $450 million. But nobody's saying it's a bad move because it's Patrick freaking Mahomes. What was your initial takeaway from this?
Honestly, I was blown away that it was for 10 years. In today's, sports world, we're seeing, shorter contracts, even though, the 5-6 year deals, they're really only 2 or 3 years that are actually guaranteed. And I know this isn't fully guaranteed for 10, right, but that number just blew me away. Yeah. Just given it's football or life in general. So much can happen over 10 years, but I mean, he's the best quarterback in football. It's the most important position in, I think, all sports. So I can understand why the Chiefs wanted to lock him down. I mean, Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP, league MVP. Guy's a player.
Guy is a player, and like you said, 10 years it seems a little bit insane, but if you're going to lock up any guy in the National Football League for 10 years, it's probably going to be Mahomes. So definitely a fun headline to talk about in this crazy offseason. But nonetheless, let's talk some Packers. This morning you released a piece actually about Adrian Amos. You said the uber reliable Amos flies under the radar. You can find that piece at dairylandexpress.com. Paul,
position all in 1 year. And Tramon Williams took almost 400 snaps there in 2018 just to help provide some sort of buffer. So in comes Amos, and he's not, Bears fans were always quick to point it out, especially on Twitter last offseason. He's not a flashy player. He's not gonna come away with a ton of interceptions. He's probably not going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, but he brings steadiness and reliability to a position that has the word safe in it. And that's what I want. I want that at the safety position. Last year, he did a little bit of everything. He was one of the top tacklers at the safety position in all of football in terms of, missed tackles. He had some of the fewest amounts. He was just a sure tackler overall. He was top 5 in pass breakups, in total pressures. Like I said, he just did a little bit of everything for this defense. And I think that because those stats aren't what people are going to remember at the end of the day, we're not going to remember, how many tackles did someone have or necessarily a pass breakup unless it comes, at a very key moment. But it's those plays added together over the course of the game that help the team secure the win. And so I said the last part that I said was his contributions, they fly under the radar, but they shouldn't be underappreciated because he's a huge part of this defense. And I think I'm expecting him to take a step forward this year, just as I am a number of those guys, Darius Smith as well, and the whole defensive unit. Because for Amos, it's year 2 in Mike Pettine's system. He was new to it last year, and he mentioned when he was on his Zoom call with reporters a few weeks ago that things are clicking faster for him because now he's just more familiar with it. So I'm expecting big things from him once again. And like I said, maybe that doesn't mean 6 interceptions, but that reliability and that steadiness. And that's a great guy to have next to Darnell Savage.
Yeah.
You got Savage, who's a roamer. He's a playmaker. And so if you got kind of the steady Amos and then Savage, who can run around making plays, that's a great 1-2 punch that the Packers have on the back end.
Really well said. Paul Bretl is my guest here on the Alex Strouf Show. And Paul, let's stick with that defensive backfield. Kevin King, obviously entering a contract year, led the team in interceptions a year ago. Year 2, again, you mentioned really year 3, I think, for King in this system. But what do you expect for him? Can he duplicate what he did a year ago, especially in a contract year?
I think he can, as long as he's healthy. He needs to become more consistent. But I think the Packers are in a really, really tricky spot with him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're all well aware that next offseason they have 5 big free agents: Clark, Bakhtiari, King, Aaron Jones, and Corey Lindsley.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Williams can be in there as well. And they don't have a ton of cap space. Last year we saw them make the 4 big signings. This year they kind of went more bargain hunting. Next offseason is going to be much of the same. We hope that, on my list, it's get Clark, get Bakhtiari, and anything after that's gravy. So we're not going to see any of those big signings. But with King, the injury history is there. He had a nice season last year. And if he can continue to prove on that in 2020, I think that he might price himself out of the Packers' price range.
And Paul,
just with that type of production. Go on.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that type of production, he was second in the league in interceptions. If he can get a little more consistency, I don't know what the Packers are going to be able to bring him back. So that's where the tough spot is. Because one option, and I know Clark and Bakhtiari take precedent, but they could potentially look into a contract extension before the season begins or even early on.
Yeah.
And what that's going to do is lock him in at a lower price than what he could get next offseason. But obviously there's some risk involved. I mean, he only played in 15 of his first 32 games over those first 2 years. So if the injury bug bites again, well, all of a sudden, the Packers are in a rock and a hard place because they paid him already. But they've also invested a lot of draft capital into this position. I mean, we look at pass years, Demarius Randall, Quentin Rollins, Jair Alexander in round 1, Josh Jackson in round 2, Kevin King in round 2. And if King is gone next year, it almost feels like they have to go spend more draft capital, high draft capital, premium draft capital on that position again, because we don't know what's going to happen with Josh Jackson. Chandon Sullivan had a really nice season. We hope he can duplicate it, but still remains to be seen. Kadar Holman, I'm a huge fan of, but once again, still remains to be seen. So there could be question marks going into the cornerback position once again. But to answer your question, as long as King's healthy, I expect him to build off of last year.
Yeah, and like I said at the top, man, you know a lot about a lot, so I appreciate the insight. Paul Bretl, my guest. Last week, Paul, you put out a tweet that I actually referenced on the show, and that was, how would you rank those 5 free agents after the 2020 season that you just brought up? And it sounded like you ranked your top 2, Bakhtiari and Clark. Are those really the 2 main priorities in your eyes for Green Bay long term?
Yeah, I think it has to be. Clark, he's developed into one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league, and he's 24 years old. I mean, theoretically, his best years are still ahead of him. Packers have to do whatever they can to lock him up. I call him and Bakhtiari 1A and 1B. If I'm absolutely forced to pick who I'd put at the top of that list, I'd put Clark just because of his age. But Bakhtiari plays the all-important left tackle position, covers Rodgers, and, if he's re-signed, Love's eventually blindside. There's just aren't positions that can be ignored, especially with those players who are 2 of the best in the league. And if I were to continue ranking, I would put Kevin King number 3. Cornerback's another premier position, and if he continues to develop like I think he will, that's a great guy to have next to Jair Alexander. Like I said, a 1-2 punch at cornerback. And then after that, I'd put Aaron Jones, although that's highly dependent on what the price tag is. Mm-hmm. We've seen that NFL teams don't have to pay running backs to be successful.
No.
And if the Packers could agree to an extension with Jones, and I keep using that word, and they're just not going to have enough money to sign, all 5 of those guys I mentioned. They're going to have to pick and choose. But if Jones would agree to perhaps an Austin Eckler deal, which was in the $6-7 million per year range, that's a lot more reasonable than what he's being projected at in the $13-14 million range. If that's the case, I just don't see how he's going to be back.
Yeah.
And then on number 5, I would have Corey Linsley.
Yeah. I
think that the Packers are, they have Lucas Patrick. They drafted Jake Hansen. I know he's a 6th rounder, but at one point, Corey Linsley was a rookie 5th rounder starting week 1 in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And so obviously that doesn't mean that Hansen's going to turn out to be Linsley level, but we've seen the Packers, not necessarily bring in a high premium draft pick and take over. So that would be the kind of the order that I have as far as who I would want to be re-signed. But like I said, I think right now it's 2 of them. And if they can get a 3rd, I mean, kudos to Russ Ball and Goody and everyone involved.
Before we move on from the Packers, Paul, I want to ask about this running back room. Obviously, bringing in A.J. Dillon was a little bit of a shocker, but now it's starting to make a little bit more sense as these contractual things really come to light with Jones and Williams. What do you think that running back room is going to look like, and rotation really is going to look like in 2020?
Well, Jones is going to be running back 1. And whether or not it's right away, Dillon is going to be getting running back 2 snaps.
Oh, wow.
We know that the position isn't as valued. It's been devalued over the years, both, in the contracts that they receive, but also in where they're drafted. I mean, the Packers were absolutely ripped apart. And Aaron Jones is a prime example of this. He was a 5th rounder. But the Packers didn't spend the 62nd pick for Jones to sit on the side, or for A.J. Dillon to sit on the sideline. Right. He's going to play. He's going to get snaps. And Jamal Williams is just a solid, well-rounded back, pass catcher, runner, pass blocker. He does it all. But Dillon gives them another explosive back out of the backfield, someone who can rip off those big plays. That's not really Williams' forte. And the combination of him and Jones on the field, or Dillon in the backfield and Aaron Jones out in the slot, I think Jones will see him out wide more this year, because you have an explosive runner in the backfield like Dillon to complement with him. So Jones is going to be 1. Dillon, I think, is going to end up, whether, how long it takes, but I think he's going to end up overtaking Williams for those RB2 snaps, because Dillon and Jones on the field, just with their explosiveness and playmaking ability, home run ability that they each have, it's a nice combo.
Paul Bretl is my guest at Paul_Bretl on Twitter for all of his great stuff. Also at DairylandExpress.com. Let's switch gears now, Paul, over to the Brewers side of things. Their schedule obviously released this week, and you wrote a piece, 7 quick takeaways from the 2020 schedule. I'm not going to have you rattle off all 7, but what's kind of the big takeaway from this schedule release? Anything we should really be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so the big thing to start is the first 7 games are going to be on the road. And I know this year's different. There's not the fans, that they have to contend with. So home field advantage probably isn't going to be as, big of a factor as it usually is. But that's still 7 games away from Miller Park. And in a 60-game season, a losing streak or a rough stretch, obviously it's going to carry way more impact than over a 162-game season. And I think getting off to a good start is more important now than it would be in normal circumstances. So that's one thing to look for. Other piece that I'll point out is in September, they have a nice home stretch where they play 9 games in 10 days at Miller Park, and they also have 4 off days, with 3 of them coming on Thursdays. We remember back to 2018 when they went on that incredible hot streak, ended up tying the Cubs, beating the Cubs in game 163. Mm-hmm. They had every Thursday off that month. There might not be a better manager in baseball, better than Craig Counsell, who knows how to manipulate the off days in his team's favor. So they have 4 in September, including 3 Thursdays. So I think that'll be key as well down the stretch.
Our Twitter poll today, Paul, is a prediction of how many games the Brewers can realistically win in the 60-game schedule. I'm going to put you on the spot. Obviously, I know it's hard to just take a wild guess, but could you give me a ballpark number of what you think is a realistic expectation for the win count for the Brewers in that 60 games?
Yeah, I did see your poll. If I had to guess, maybe, 32 and 28, 33 and 27, 31 and 29. I see them being somewhere in that ballpark. I think that this shortened season really plays into their favor. The DH is coming to the NL. That means, in theory, more Ryan Braun, because they're not going to have to rest him as much. Someone like Logan Morrison, he hit 37, 38 home runs back in 2017. That's another DH candidate. Their depth in the pitching rotation. They have their starting 5, they have the 4 guys locked in, but then there's guys like Eric Lauer, Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta. So they have 7 guys there. They have a nice bullpen. Knebel's back and healthy. We'll see how they ease him into things, but he's going to be pitching. Josh Hader, and then just all the bats that they have and the defensive versatility. I think all that plays really well into their favor, but there's still question marks too. A lot of fans were upset with how this offseason went. We saw Moose go, we saw Grandal go, and their place were, a lot of platoons. Eric Sogard, Jed Jerko at third base. How are they going to perform? That's a big question mark. And guys like Justin Smoke, coming off a down season, but the underlying numbers show that he performed better than maybe what his slash line did. So there's still a lot of question marks, especially offensively with the bats and even in the rotation as well. So while I think that everything plays, or a lot of these new factors play into their favor this season, there's still, those unknowns. So I don't expect them to run away with the Central by any means, because, that's going to be a brutal division as it is. Everyone's going to be competing for the title outside the Pirates.
Absolutely. Always a tough division. One more for you, Paul, at Paul_Bretl on Twitter, if you want to follow along with all of his great work. And this is one I've been asking every NFL guest for the last couple of weeks. I'm putting you on the spot. It's a way too early prediction, but what is your way too early prediction for the 2020 NFL most valuable player? Anybody come to mind when I ask that?
Yeah, and we've already talked about him. I got to go Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. So we know that, and I hope that's not a cop-out answer, but that's my safe answer as well. I think the Chiefs are, they hardly lost anyone from last year to begin with. Like I said, Mahomes is the best, quarterback in the league right now. It's an award that goes towards quarterbacks. So the best quarterback on potentially the best team making another Super Bowl push. I think it just points to him.
It's not a cop-out answer, because I think it might be just the best one overall. Paul, really appreciate the time. You stay healthy, and we'll do it again soon. All right, my friend?
Thank you. Appreciate it, Alex.
That is Paul Bretl, who is the editor and writer for DairylandExpress.com. Really great stuff. That's part of the Fan-Sided and Time Inc. network. You can find all of his stuff at Paul_Bretl on Twitter. We are going to take a timeout, and on the other side, me and producer Kyle going to dive into this Brewers schedule a little bit. Phone lines are open, though, 877-8-STROF, 877-878-7683. If you've got anything you want to touch on before the top of the hour, you might want to call now. So phone lines open, 877-8-STROF. We'll do some calls, and we will do the schedule on the other side. This is the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central.
I would like to hear other players' views on this, just because obviously we've really only heard Blake Snell's, strong opinion on this, which I respect him because.
Oh, you haven't heard the Trevor Bauer.
Oh, maybe what has Trevor Bauer said?
So him and his agent Rachel Luba, they've been putting out all these videos with the postponement and kind of how it is from an agency perspective and a player perspective. They've been really just kind of putting everything out there that everybody's afraid to say. And I've been watching a ton of the videos with it, and they put out a whole hour video about the suspected proposal and what the rumors are. And one of the things that made me laugh so hard, and he talked about it, and he's pretty much on the same page as Blake Snell from the aspect of we already agreed to something, and the MLB is basically stepping back and saying maybe not, maybe we can't do that, which is I think what's getting the players the most. However,
shouldn't they expect that? I guess
no, but
everybody's life is different right now, so why shouldn't theirs be different?
But the thing that has bothered them the most, so the MLB already said, okay, deal that they had put in place at the beginning of the postponement of the season. They said, okay, we will take prorated salary, so we're already diminishing a chunk of our guaranteed salary depending on how many games we play. And then they agreed on the service time and everything. And now the MLB has essentially said, maybe not, maybe you won't even get that much. And that's the thing that's frustrating, is because they already agreed and that's something that I never thought they would agree with in the beginning, because it's a money game. Everybody wants the most amount of money they can. And so that's where the players are like, well, what the hell are you doing now? Now you're saying I may not even get half of my salary.
Bernie's Bums, the official Brewers podcast of CreamCityCentral.com. Download wherever you get your podcasts today.
It's the Strouf Show Twitter question.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Chime in on today's topic at Cream City Central on Twitter.
So, me being the wonderful host I am, totally forgot to bring this up at the top of the show. But I referenced it in the interview, or the conversation with Paul, rather. And we might as well introduce it now to all of you that might not have seen it if you're watching over on Facebook. So today's Twitter poll is the following. How many wins do the Brewers get in this shortened regular season, the 60-game season? Your options are 40 plus, 35 through 39, 30 through 34, or under 30. So 40 plus and below 30 are your highest option, your lowest option. Both of those have 10.3% of the poll. 30 to 34 games is at 33.8%, and 45.6% of you say between 35 and 39 wins for the Crew. I think that might be a little high, but I like the optimism.
I mean, personally, I agree with what Paul said. I voted 30 to 34.
Yeah, I think that's the right ballpark.
I think we're going to see I don't know what the playoff format is yet for the MLB. They're still talking in works about that. If it were the current system they have right now, where it's the 5 teams in each league, 10 teams total, yeah. I don't know if the Brewers make it in as that first or second wild card, just because I think that the division is going to be so competitive, and I think 4 out of the 5 teams are going to have a very similar record. I think that the difference between 4th place and 1st place could be 3 to 4 games, really. So
right, yeah.
Greg Williams says the format is the normal format.
Yeah, I thought that was the case, but maybe you were more up to speed on it than I was, so I wasn't gonna question you. But Greg's just gonna do it for me.
Thanks, Greg.
Great. So the Twitter poll open until the end of the show. You can find it at Cream City Central on Twitter. But as Kyle mentioned, or had the graphic up right at the beginning there was the schedule was released. If you could pull the graphic up once again, we'll go through it quickly. So this is what it looks like. Obviously open on a little bit of a road stretch before returning home on the 31st. for a 2-series, 5-game stand. A lot of that long road stretch in the middle of August from the 13th to the 23rd. They are on the road. Then a little bit of a home stretch there, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Detroit. And then back and forth, really. A long homestand, which Paul referenced in mid-September to late September. And then they end with 7 games on the road before the playoffs ultimately begin there at the end of September, beginning of October. So there is your 60-game schedule. If you're not aware, obviously the traveling has been reduced. So you play your division and then the equivalent of your American League division, in this case for the Brewers. So the NL Central and the AL Central, the only opponents the Brewers will see to minimize traveling given the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is the Brewers 2020 schedule, 60 games. It's going to be interesting to see, man. So that poll is open for another hour if you want to chime in on their win count. Neil Tice says 40 plus. And man, Neil, I really like your optimism. I just don't think that's realistic for Milwaukee in 2020. And you can see there, Neil's got his nice new Brewers jersey on.
I don't think it's really the way the schedule the way that normal MLB season works out. Obviously, this isn't a normal season, but you see a lot of the records around that 500 mark. Obviously, some teams exceed that. The Dodgers last year, obviously, you get teams that win over 100, but I don't think it's going to be much different this season. I think you're going to see a lot of teams around that. At least the playoff teams will have 5 or 6 games above the 500 mark. Probably gets you into the playoffs. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of 40-plus win teams. The Dodgers come to mind. The Yankees come to mind. If the Astros continue their
maybe Houston,
ways,
right?
Yeah. So, I don't think we're going to see a lot of teams go 40-plus, even if the Brewers have a good season, which I think they certainly could.
I think absolutely maximum, Kyle. I think that absolute maximum number is maybe 38, 37. I can't justify much higher than that just because it's hard to really heat up as you just began. Now, Greg chimes in. I did want to touch on this, so I'm glad he asked it. Thoughts on 7 out of 10 Milwaukee Cub games being in Wrigley? In a regular year, I'd probably say, yeah, that's not great. But in a not regular year, I really don't care. There's no fans. The home field advantage thing really isn't that existent. I mean, obviously it's your home field, but that's really all it is, right? I mean, you're playing in the same conditions.
Yeah,
they know that field well enough. I mean, I don't think it really presents that big of an advantage, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to bring it up when we had the schedule up, but we were talking about that long road stretch. I don't think that we're going to see, I don't think these long road stretches are certainly huge deals because you're not going from LA to San Francisco to San Diego to Arizona all the way to New York, and you're not going coast to coast.
Right.
You're staying relatively, within 12 hours.
Right.
I think Kansas City is probably the farthest away they're going this year.
Pittsburgh, I think. Or
Probably Pittsburgh,
yeah.
Yeah. So you're not going very far. You're staying relatively close. So I don't think that, people are obviously hyping up the huge road stands that they have at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, and the one you mentioned in the middle of August. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as what people are making it out to be because you're so close. You're not going from LA to New York to Atlanta, back home for like 2 games and then going back to wherever. I think
going to Toronto and then Seattle and then Arlington, right? You're not going all over the place. The travel's reduced, which might play a factor, right? It's going to be interesting to see how it really shakes out and how this shortened season and longer off season, of course, really affects the play. We are going to get to a break here in a second, but I do want to plug while you're all chatting Brewers with us, we do have right-handed pitcher JP Feyereisen joining us at 4:30. He's ready to make his major league debut this season with his team. Went to UW Stevens Point, where I'm sitting, River Falls High School alum. Really looking forward to this conversation with JP later in the 4 o'clock hour. So all things Brewers with JP Feyereisen, a right-handed pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll get some more talk with him. But we've got 4 p.m. headlines coming up on the other side. Phone line's still open. If you've got anything you want to bring up, 877-8-STROUF is the number for that. We're going to take a 90-second break, and we're back with the headlines of the 4 o'clock hour. This is the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central.
You look at teams like the 49ers, and they literally did a 180 in terms of performance and their ability to just beat the crap out of teams. And then you go, okay, well, why shouldn't I expect that from my team? And I didn't expect that from the Packers this year. I really didn't. Now, of course, we all have high expectations for next season.
I think there's always been a sense of high expectation as a fan. I mean, even last year when, we came off of the 7-9 season when Rodgers was out half the year, the feeling was, oh, Rodgers is back. We should do better. That clearly just wasn't the case. There's always going to be a high level of expectation when you're the Green Bay Packers, just because of the history. There's a winning culture in this area. And LaFleur knew that too coming into his job. He knew that he had to, be successful right away. Not necessarily saying he had a short leash, but knowing that if he's not successful, he won't make it out of his first contract. So I think he accomplished that with flying colors. I mean, 13-3, you'll take that every year. Obviously, you want it to end with a Super Bowl, but 13-3 is not something to look past. It's a big deal when you win 75% of your games.
That was a short clip from the Lambeau Lead, Cream City Central's only Packers podcast. Make sure to check it out today.
Loud, unfiltered, and live nationwide. It's the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central.
This is where things get a little tricky. I think the team that voted no today is going to be a playoff team.
From the WWSP 90 FM studios in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, here's Alex Strouf.
And we roll right into the 4 o'clock hour here on the Alex Strouf Show. Man, it's flying by. That means we're having fun. I think that's what
that's how
the
the saying goes, yeah.
Yeah, that is how that goes. So that must mean we're having at least an inch of fun. And I hope you are, as you rock along with us. Producer Kyle, I'm Alex Strouf. And Producer Kyle is here with the news. 4 p.m. headline time. Let's do it.
So I couldn't fit a banner in for this one because it just came in. You might have heard my phone ding.
I did.
As the intro was going on. Ken Rosenthal just put out, it appears to be an article for The Athletic. We've heard the talk about the Redskins changing their name, Indians possibly changing their name. The Braves are now discussing the use of the tomahawk chop, I should say, but not their name. So obviously another Native American mascot that is used in sports, the Atlanta Braves. Tomahawk chop. I believe they might have been the team that made that popular. I know the Florida State Seminoles do it as well.
Yeah.
So that's just coming in. You can read that article on the.
Isn't that more of a fan thing though? Can you really control?
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think
obviously you can promote it, right? Break out the tomahawk chop on the scoreboard, but
yeah,
I feel like it's going to be hard to eliminate once fans are.
I believe there's a song that goes with it too, or like a sound effect. But yeah, that's just coming out. Ken Rosenthal putting it out on Twitter. MLB writer for The Athletic. So I didn't have a banner for that because that came in literally 30 seconds before we came back on. So
well, there you go. There's some news. Go on.
Continuing in baseball here, Milwaukee Brewers are finalizing deal with first-round pick Garrett Mitchell. We broke this news a couple weeks ago when they drafted Garrett Mitchell with the first. Yeah, there.
That's the word.
It's been a long 48 hours for me.
Oh, quit your complaining. Go on.
So this, if obviously, I think you were telling me you saw a post from Garrett Mitchell's girlfriend who plays softball at
Oregon. Yeah, Haley Cruz.
Yeah, my guess it sounds like you have a huge crush on her, but
that's what it is, definitely.
Yeah.
Go on, yeah.
And it looks like they're on their way to Milwaukee. So if this is the case, according to Robert Murray, the Brewers, upon signing their first-round pick, would have completed their entire signing of their 2020 draft class, which is only 5 players.
Yeah, obviously a shortened draft this year. This was a big get, though. I mean, obviously everybody thought this kid was a top 5 pick, and he falls to number 20. An outfielder, obviously Ryan Braun and Lorenzo Cain aren't going to be around forever. So really, really big fan of this pick, as we discussed a few weeks back when he was drafted. and to get a deal done is good. I don't think obviously he's the type of guy that can make a jump right to the majors here in 2020, but 2-3 years down the road, he could definitely make a big impact for Milwaukee. So it's good to see them get a deal done, right? I don't know. It's always so hard to talk about rookie contracts, Kyle, because this is a guy you haven't seen in the gold and blue yet.
Because you're not going to see him, unless you follow minor league baseball religiously.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to see this guy on an MLB roster for 3-4 years, unless he's really good, and you get like a Bryce Harper kind of guy, and he's in the minor or in the majors within 1 year.
I'm not to badmouth Garrett Mitchell by any means, but I don't think he's Mike Trout or Bryce Harper. I just don't. But I mean, I hope he is by all means, but I don't think he will be. So, but hopefully he can be a solid pickup. And like I said, everybody was really thrilled with this pick, right? I mean, this guy was supposed to be
he was really
top
good.
5, top 7 pick, and he falls all the way to 20. And I think it was heavily due to he has diabetes, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a concern for a couple of ball clubs. But the Brewers taking a shot on him, and I think it's going to be a good one. So it's good to see him get that deal done. What's next?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to wrap it up here quick. Once obviously once he gets signed, he'll probably go and be a part of that taxi squad team in Appleton.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I would imagine so, right?
Sticking with the Brewers, this is probably my favorite headline of the day. The Brewers restaurant, which is called Restaurant to be Named Later, to be reopened on a date to be named later.
So I saw this tweet from Tom Hodgecourt, and I didn't realize at the time. Now, I mean, I put it together because it was all in all capital letters, but it took me a second. I didn't realize they renamed it was a TGI Fridays, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
They renamed it the Restaurant to be Named Later.
Yes.
That's annoying to me.
Well,
it's funny. It's a good pun, but it's annoying to me.
I think that it's good for like a good, funny kind of conversation to have with somebody. And then you're like, well, this is kind of dumb. Like, I like to make the joke on Twitter, like, oh, have they come up with a name yet? And I've done it probably 6 or 7 times. And
wow, beat a dead horse, why don't you?
It's probably not. It's probably funny the first or second time. But, I mean, this headline is just
beat a dead horse, Kyle. Go ahead. Just keep beating it, man.
Well, I mean, this headline just writes itself. I mean,
unreal.
Oh,
what's next?
That was a little bit of fun that I had. Now we got to go to some bad news. Not bad news, but depressing. Whatever. Not fun news.
Yeah.
NFLPA President J.C. Tretter, former Packers offensive lineman, if you're keeping score at home, he is at odds with the NFL over their COVID-19 plan, which includes 2 preseason games. The NFL is reportedly talking about limiting preseason rosters to 75. Normally, that is 90 players. Yeah. Obviously, this is to reduce the spread of COVID. By bringing less people in, obviously, you have less of a chance of spreading the virus. So, I mean, I didn't really go too much into the article, but I know the NFLPA wants to have no preseason at all, and obviously that would mean keeping with the intra-squad, games. You would have to do some form of, game of some sort, whether it be a intra-squad scrimmage or maybe even bring in a team for a scrimmage or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, the Players Association does not want a preseason, and ongoing discussions are related to roster size, testing, and all that stuff. So
my stance on preseason, Kyle, right? I don't think it's that necessary. I know, there's probably 2, 3, 4 tops guys that make an impact in a preseason game and lock up their roster spot. But what are the odds that happens just by having practices with your own team? I mean, the odds are pretty high. You're still going to be able to recognize which guys deserve to be on that 53-man roster. So I've never been a fan of preseason. I've always thought it should be 2 games at the maximum. I'm glad they reduced it to that at the very least, eliminating it as a whole, which players, especially veterans, guys that, obviously are locked up, and starters and guys that will make the roster, no doubt, have never really been a fan of it. It's the undrafted free agents and those 7th-round picks from 2 years ago that really rely on preseason to make sure they're getting a paycheck. So that's the one downfall from this. But other than that, I'm all for canceling preseason as a whole, or even downgrading it to just 1 game. whether it be played behind closed doors at a neutral site or something like that, because fans aren't going to be allowed in more than likely to preseason games. So I'm all for this. Like I said, like I keep saying, I've never been a huge fan of preseason to begin with. I think it's just a drunk fest, and it's cheap tickets. It's just a money grab by the National Football League. Outside of, like I mentioned, there's 3, 4, 5 maybe guys that can really lock up a roster spot by competing and showing out in a preseason game. But it doesn't really affect your roster a whole lot. So I'm all for it, especially in a year like this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a lot of Packer games in my time. I've left a game early once, and that was a preseason game.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, and that was last year. That was last year's Houston Texans preseason game. And I only went because, J.J. Watt never even ended up playing. And then there was a guy on the Texans who played at Green Bay Southwest High School. So there you go. That's kind of why. That's really the main reason why I went. I didn't even go to see any of the Packers.
No.
But I still think there is something that you can get from watching, bubble guys playing against another team. The people who bring up the argument that, you can really tell, or it really, the thing you hear is it really helps your team's timing. Like if you throw out Aaron Rodgers in the starting offense for a couple snaps, it helps their timing in the season. Well, I remember that Aaron Rodgers didn't get much playing time in the preseason, and the Packers went 13-3 this year, and the offense at times looked fantastic.
I don't even think he played a snap, Kyle.
I don't think he did either.
I don't think he played
and
a
they went
snap
13-3, so there you go.
No, it has nothing to do with your frontline guys. It absolutely has nothing to do with your frontline guys. It has everything to do with your third and fourth stringers that are bubble guys, as you just call them, for your roster. The preseason does not have a huge effect on the long-term success, or really season-long success of a team. The preseason doesn't. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what you want to provide me with. The guys that make the rosters are going to provide and produce with or without a preseason. It's just as simple as that.
I can't argue much there on that. I'm just gonna let you go from there.
Okay, great. What's next?
So, we don't talk about UFC a lot, and I'm a huge UFC guy. Alex and I know you're a little bit of a fan. For those who are UFC fans, UFC 251 is shaping up to be one of the greatest fight cards in history. And I was talking to a buddy of mine a couple days ago about this card. And I'm going to get to the news part first, and then I'll talk about the card. Gilbert Burns, one of the fighters who was supposed to fight in the main event, tested positive for COVID. And Jorge Masvidal will be filling in for him in the UFC 251 main event. And the reason why I bring this up is because this card is just going to be insane with talent. 3 title fights. Alex, you don't look very interested in this. However,
I'm listening. Go on.
And I mean, I'm not sure how many viewers we have that are actually interested in this topic. However, I did want to bring it up because UFC is one of the only, between golf, NASCAR, and UFC, that's really all you got for options.
Got the tournament, too. We'll get to that in a little bit.
We'll get to that in a little bit, yeah. And you got cornhole if you're watching.
I did watch cornhole.
Yeah, you did watch cornhole, yeah. You did mention that, yes. And I also want to mention, too, we did get a voicemail. So we'll put, I don't know if you want to get that up. I don't know if it's a way you can get that up on your end or not, but we do have a voicemail from our phone line. 877-878-7683 is our phone line. For those of you who are calling in. For the one person who has called in, we thank you for your voicemail. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up, kind of a little bit of a, we talk about football and basketball and baseball, and obviously those are not happening right now. But it's good. I think it's good to talk about UFC a little bit. So there you go. That's all I got.
All right, who's he facing? You kind of missed that part.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jorge Masvidal is facing Kamaru Usman, the UFC.
Oh yeah, Usman.
Yeah, welterweight champion. So 3 title fights: Usman, Masvidal, Max Holloway. Can't think, guys. Other guys.
Whatever. Right I don't know.
3
somebody
title
knows
fights.
you can chime in. You got anything else, or is that it?
That's all I got.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, Kyle, from the news. So I guess apparently we have a voicemail. Kyle did a really good job at my computer just stopped working. Okay, I think I'm back. All right, sorry about that. This is what we got. Let's hear it.
Just wanted to get your take on this. I know you talked about the Patrick Mahomes extension earlier in the show, and I think you mentioned Dak a little bit too, but if you're Jerry Jones, now that the quarterback market is kind of inflated and like you're going to see some crazy extensions over the next decade now with this 10-year extension, if you're Jerry Jones, do you start to take Dak Prescott a little bit more seriously? I know I have my answer, but what do you say about Dak Prescott and his contract negotiations?
So you take.
Thanks for taking the call, and I look forward to hearing your answer on the show.
Yeah, thanks for the call. If I'm Jerry Jones, do I take Dak more seriously because of Mahomes' deal? Well, that's not a fair comp at all. That's not a fair comparison at all. It's hard to compare Dak Prescott's situation to Patrick Mahomes. Dak Prescott is not an NFL MVP. Dak Prescott has not thrown 50 touchdowns in this regular season. Dak Prescott has not won a Super Bowl. It's a very different situation. Now, in terms of money, in terms of contract size, can you make a case? Maybe a small one, but not much of one. The way I look at it is if you're Jerry Jones, you still hold the cards. I mean, we know Jerry Jones is playing poker while everybody else is playing Go Fish. I mean, the guy is one of the smartest negotiators in all of sports. So when I look at this Dak Prescott situation that inevitably is going to come to a head probably within the next 2-3 weeks, given that this tender does expire, obviously, for a long-term sake, I think of course it's interesting, right? It's interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes affects the quarterback market, because a guy like Deshaun Watson as well is sitting on, his hands, essentially waiting for an extension to be tossed at him, as is Dak Prescott. There's no way a 10-year deal is getting thrown at Dak Prescott. Hell, there's no way a 5-year deal is getting thrown at Dak Prescott. I think the absolute most is 5, but I don't even think that's going to happen. I think he'll probably get somewhere between a 3 and 4 year deal, and it will be worth a lot of money. I think 4 years, $110 million. Yeah, that seems a little high, but I'm just spitballing here off the top of the head. It's realistic, sure, but I don't think Patrick Mahomes entirely affects Dak Prescott's situation in Dallas. I think when I look at it, it's this. I think Dak Prescott and the quarterback market is just going up. So Dak Prescott's number will go up. Same with Watson. Same with Kyler Murray. Their numbers are up because quarterbacks, number one, are playing older than any position. Number two, they are the most important position, if not in all of sports, the most important position in football. The money's high because the cap space is high. And if you truthfully believe, as Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and Mike McCarthy, if you truthfully believe Dak Prescott is your franchise quarterback for 5, 6, 7 years to come, then a deal like 4 years, $100 million isn't crazy. But I don't think Dak would go for that. 110 he might go for in 4 years, because that's what just under 30 million. I don't even know if he'd go for that. 4-year 120. Dak wants his money, and now this Mahomes thing doesn't help his negotiating, because he'll probably want more and say, look what this guy just got. And then the response is, well, he's Patrick Mahomes and you're Dak Prescott. As much as I like Dak Prescott, I mean, I've been on the Dak Prescott bandwagon for a long time. The last several weeks, I've gotten endless tweets and comments and reactions that say Dak Prescott isn't a top 5 quarterback in 2020, where I will absolutely make the case that he could be. But to think that this Patrick Mahomes deal at all affects Dak Prescott's money, outside of that it affects every quarterback's money, is just a little insane to me, right? Other comparisons that I can throw at you is, how does this Dalvin Cook contract situation affect Aaron Jones? Does it? No, not really. But it could a little bit, but Dalvin Cook's a much better back than Aaron Jones. I mean, it's just hard to make these comparisons because the situations are all a little bit different. They're all a little bit different. So it's interesting to look at. But thanks for the call. Phone lines are still open, 877-878-7683. If you want to get something in before we get to JP Feyereisen in about 10 minutes. But we've got a couple other things I want to get to. First off, the basketball tournament. So we had Travis Diener on a few weeks back to talk about the tournament. It's been on ESPN the last few weeks. And you know what? That's really all I got to say. The basketball tournament is awesome, Alex Strouf. I think I probably said that at one point. And it really is. It really is. It's been entertaining. I watched it all weekend long. Yesterday, the Golden Eagles, which is Marquette's alumni team, they won. Our boy Travis Diener did not play. However, they did get a win and are moving on to, I believe, what is the round of 16. The Golden Eagles were runner-up last year. But the cool thing about this is was this Sunday or Saturday? I can't quite remember. It was a matchup between Team Hines and I believe it's Sideline Cancer was the name of the team. And on Sideline Cancer, there was former Wisconsinite Diamond Stone. And on Team Hines was former Badger Ethan Happ. So Diamond Stone and Ethan Happ, who both have deep Wisconsin ties, were matching up with one another. And that was a heck of a game. However, Ethan Happ sadly went home because the cool thing is with this COVID thing, they are packing everybody's bags before the game. So you go to play a game, you pack your bags, leave them in a hallway or the locker room or wherever. If you lose, you are kicked out of this bubble. And they are in Columbus, Ohio. So you have to leave Columbus, Ohio immediately if you lose, which is just a fun new element, obviously, with COVID going on. So it is very, very entertaining basketball alongside the very, very entertaining different stipulations that are involved with that. So the basketball tournament has indeed been awesome.
I want to point out something. I've kind of tuned in to the basketball tournament once or twice. It's not usually this time of year you're watching, baseball. That's pretty much about it, actually, just watching baseball. So I did actually watch a little. I don't watch too much of it, but I did watch a little bit of it. And I like how you brought up the point about, the packing the bags, and the bags are there right away. When I first watched it a couple years ago, I kind of had the feel of like going to like a middle school or a high school basketball tournament.
Yeah.
And now that you're like packing the bags and like your bags are just laying in the hallway, now it really feels like a middle school.
No, right. Warm up the bus. Warm up the right.
Yeah.
I mean, the metaphor, the hypothetical, non-existent more so. Fans are really chanting that to them. So that is a fun element that is built in this year, which I have enjoyed. But I mean, truthfully, it's just cool to see all these guys, right? That we saw either shine or star or even just play a role on really good college teams. It's been fun to see. Like Marshall has a bunch of their alum. I think it's called Heard That is their team. And some of those guys you heard of very briefly in college.
Yeah.
And they're coming in here and shining and hitting big shots and making big plays. Rim rattling dunks are still a thing. I saw the craziest alley-oop, which I'm not going to give you the play-by-play, but there was a really sweet alley-oop. I mean, there's just been so many cool elements and things going on. I love that you quoted me in this bottom third here. But no, it has been incredibly entertaining, and I'm a huge basketball guy, so to see live basketball once again just makes my heart full. But as it gets heated up, right, as we get into this Elite Eight and Final Four and eventually the championship game, the basketball just gets more intense. And the Elam ending, which we talked about it with Travis Diener last month, is, the clock gets to 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then it sets a target score. I don't remember exactly how it goes. I think it takes like 20% of your score or something like that, adds it to your score, adds it to the winning team's score, and then that is the target score. So let's say it's 70 to 65, right? With 4 minutes left, there's an automatic timeout called, and then your target score becomes 84. So the first team to 84 will then win.
Huh, that's good.
And it's an awesome element, man. They used it in the NBA All-Star game this past year.
Right. That's
right. And they use it in this tournament. So if you haven't seen the Elam ending in action, it's really, really neat. It's a really, really neat element. It was created by Nick Elam, Dr. Nick Elam, who is a professor at Ball State University, if I'm not mistaken. So it is really, really neat. If you haven't turned it into the tournament, I recommend you do that. There's going to be more on tonight. So it is always fun to see. So
and you get great stories. I'll let you move on here after I tell this. When we had Diener on, we talked about his Wikipedia page and the fact that allegedly he hit the game-winning shot while drunk on White Claws and wearing cowboy boots. So you get, obviously that wasn't the case. That he said on the air that was proven false.
Oh, right.
But I mean, it's just like a really fun element, and for those of you who enjoy college basketball, it's kind of good to see past stars play again. So, I mean, I think you definitely sold me on watching tonight. So,
oh well, you better. I'm telling you to. That's your homework assignment. All right, we got to move on quickly before we get to JP Feyereisen on the other side. Our fight night topic this week. Fight night is the segment that gets you on the show, right? You'll come on here on Thursday. If you reply, you can reply right away in the live comment section. We'll clip this. We'll post it around. You can reply to us, tweet us, call us if you want to, leave a voicemail on this fight night topic, which is what is the best quarterback, wide receiver, running back trio in the NFL. You've got options, right? You can go right to Green Bay. Rodgers, Jones, and Adams is a pretty strong trio. You can go somewhere like Arizona, Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, DeAndre Hopkins. It's a bold one, but you can go that direction. My boys in Dallas, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I like this trio of Prescott, Elliott, and Amari Cooper. But my answer is going to be the New Orleans Saints. I don't think you can go wrong with this trio. Michael Thomas at wide receiver has been the most reliable and potentially the top receiver since 2017. I mean, the guy has just been thrilling and has been just unbelievable as Drew Brees' top guy. Drew Brees, obviously the quarterback. I don't need to make a case for him. And I really don't need to make a case for Alvin Kamara. He led the league, I believe, in running back receptions a year ago, or he was second. I know he was top 2. So, I mean, this trio, high scoring, they're speedy, they're electric, they're wise, they're under the direction of Sean Payton, who is just like an orchestra leader. I mean, the guy is just an insane head coach at the National Football League level. I can't go wrong with New Orleans as my pick as the best trio in the NFL. Again, if you want to chime in on this and debate this, discuss it with me on Thursday, chime in the live comment section, give us a call, leave a voicemail, whatever you want to do. That is how you can get involved with the show. We are going to take a timeout. JP Feyereisen, who's a right-handed pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's a product right here of UW Stevens Point, as well as River Falls High School. A lot of Wisconsin ties for this guy. Was announced on the 45-man spring training 2.0 is what they're calling it roster for the Brewers. He's going to be a fun conversation. We've got him next. This is the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central.
Talking MLB proposal for the 2020 season.
Dude, I am so fired up about this. Like, I have gone on so many rants to the people around me who couldn't care less about it, but this whole thing has just got me in a tizzy.
So, for the people that don't know, maybe me, how about you give us some of the details about what they proposed?
Okay. So I'll lay down kind of, this is what we know or is rumored to be on the proposal. Obviously, stuff hasn't officially been said, but the 4 main things that I've heard at least are to be an 82-game season, the playoffs would be expanded, there'd be the universal DH, and then the 50-50 revenue split. And so I guess we can kind of go down the lines. 82 games, it makes sense. So if we start on July 4th, it will just, and the other thing that I forgot to write down is it'll most likely be like region play. So you'll be playing only your division and then maybe interleague games with the division in your region. So like the AL Central would play the Brewers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's tough because it definitely makes you feel like the season would have an asterisk next to it.
I think it would inevitably. I mean, it is a shortened season. Any shortened season is going to have an asterisk next to it, and much less the circumstances around it. Like, this season will be talked about for years if it does go through, which, to be honest, I don't know if it will. But
Bernie's Bums, the official Brewers podcast of CreamCityCentral.com. Download wherever you get your podcasts today.
I'm going to read you a quote from one of Giannis's teammates. and then, using your wealth of superstar NBA experience, you are going to read between the lines and tell us if we can actually learn anything from what this teammate has said. So first up, this is from Pat Connaughton on March 31st, so just a few weeks ago. He says, obviously the city of Milwaukee, the team, everyone wants Giannis to be here forever. But Giannis has put himself in a position to provide for his family from growing up with nothing in Greece. I don't think you can fault Giannis for whatever decision he ends up making that he believes is the best decision for him, his family, the people who are closest to him.
Yo, Pat's a smart dude. Pat's trying to get on teams with Giannis in the future wherever Giannis is. Pat is not trying to ruffle feathers. Pat is giving a massage right there. That's my gut.
And can you blame him?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, he's a 6'5" white dude who relies on his athleticism. Yeah, I mean, how much of a career does he have left?
There's a ceiling. There's a ceiling. Yeah, man. Of course.
All right, Pat's playing the long game.
Small Ball, Milwaukee Bucks Micro Podcast, presented by Cream City Central. Download wherever you get your podcasts.
We welcome you back inside the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central. And we go to the phone line now as we are joined by a River Falls High School graduate, a product of UW Stevens Point, and now a right-handed pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. It is Mr. JP Feyereisen joining us on the Alex Strouf Show. JP, how are you, my friend? Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Alex. I'm doing great and enjoying the Milwaukee heat right now.
Yeah, it is humid as heck in this state, is it not? But I got to ask you, man, obviously been a really, really weird few months. Everything healthy, everything good on your end, I assume?
Yeah, everything's great on my end. Actually as crazy as the world has been, it was a nice couple months getting to be with the family in the summertime for the first time in 8 years. So I got to enjoy that, and then also get ready for the season still.
So I got to ask you, I've been calling it summer camp. I think they're calling it spring training 2.0. But JP, when you saw your name on that roster and knew you were going to be a part of that 45-man group, what's the reaction? You grew up cheering for this team. I mean, that's got to be as exciting as I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, any kid that grows up in Wisconsin, being a Brewers fan, it's just kind of like a dream come true. And getting the invite to come down to Milwaukee and compete for a spot is basically the best thing I could possibly imagine.
JP Feyereisen, pitcher for the Brewers, is my guest at this time. And JP, I don't want to get a quote out of you. I don't want to get you in trouble by any means, but obviously the back and forth we've seen the last few months, in my opinion, has just been, outrageous and maybe even entertaining in the slightest. What was that like for you? Obviously you're waiting to hear when you're able to restart and get back in the stadium and get back to normal functioning. What was kind of watching this public back and forth going on like for you?
I mean, for me, especially just being new to the whole thing with the union and the MLB, I was just more trusting in our veteran players to make the decisions that for us and know that they have all of us in their best interest. And so for me, I was just basically head down, keep going, and just be ready for when it happens, if it happens, and hope it happens. I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to the back and forth, because I knew that sooner or later they were going to figure something out. Yeah. It was just whenever it happened, I wanted to be ready for it.
And one follow-up on that, JP, was there ever a doubt in your mind that there was not going to be a season? Was there ever a thought that there might not be one?
Honestly, I never had a doubt. Okay. Obviously there's that doubt of who knows how bad COVID could get, how bad the coronavirus could get. But obviously, for me, when it's between the two sides disagreeing, I never had a doubt that we weren't going to get something worked out.
I like your optimism, JP. I appreciate the insight. JP Feyereisen, my guest at this time. So returning to Milwaukee last week, the team was, you've been able to practice a little bit in Miller Park. What's it been like? Obviously, masks are at least a little bit of a new addition, but outside of that, what's it been like returning and getting back to real baseball there at Miller Park?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be back and actually get to practice and get to play on Miller Park and get to go about our business there. But it's just been weird because we've been kind of coming in different times and you don't, I mean, there's some guys on the team that I've maybe seen one time since I've been down here. So it's kind of weird. It's a little different feel from spring training where everyone comes in at the same time and you're close together in the same locker room where we're split up between locker rooms. And everyone's kind of spread out and you don't have a guy next to you in your locker or even the locker next to that one. You're a couple lockers apart. So everything's more, it's just like almost like more individualized and they're trying to keep everything as safe as possible for us. And yeah, it's just weird not seeing your whole team every day, but you just know that everyone's going about their business and trying to be ready.
Right. And I was going to ask, is there guys you haven't even met yet, or is there any guys you haven't seen at all yet? Because obviously you can't have everybody in the building at the same time quite yet. That was my next question.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I've seen everybody, whether it's in passing and or just like when we were doing physicals and everything, you kind of just like see guys either when you're basically going from one test to another or anything like that. But I've met everybody just because spring training, you got to meet everybody and you got to become friends during the spring. And now it's kind of a different feel. I mean, you want your team to feel like a family, but obviously it's tough too when you don't get to see each other every day, but you just know that the guys that you do see, you just connect with them. And then when you finally get to all come back together, it's just like, you friends that you haven't seen for a while, you just pick up right where you left off.
JP Feyereisen, my guest pitcher for the Brewers. The 60-game schedule was released this week, and obviously we know there will be the cab squad or the taxi squad. They're kind of calling it up in Appleton with guys ready to float in. What's the feeling as we get closer and closer to opening day with all this going on? I mean, COVID has made this such an unprecedented and weird season, and details are just starting to come out. What's it been like for you, and what are your thoughts as we get closer, JP?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be a weird feeling if I'm with the taxi squad. Just you're not playing normal games like you would in AAA. You're not going to play another team every single day, and you're going to get those same reps in. So the intensity of games will be a little bit different, I'm sure, for the guys on the taxi squad. But I feel like whatever the teams have in mind for us, I think that they're going to have us prepared as well as we can be, so that when we are in Milwaukee or wherever we are playing, that we'll be ready to go when we get our name called. So yeah, but it's definitely going to feel a little bit different when there's, instead of having 25 guys like you do on a normal AAA team, it might be only 15 or 20. So it'll be, it's gonna feel a little bit different for sure.
Well, props to you, man, because like I said, it's so unprecedented and strange. JP Feyereisen, my guest. So let's talk about a tweet you sent out. You got yelled at for playing catch in the street a couple of weeks back. What was that about?
Yeah, so actually, another Wisconsin kid, Ben Heller, he and I were playing catch when I came down to Milwaukee because he lives around here. Okay. So we were out in the street just playing catch basically because he had to leave the next day to go to New York because he's with the Yankees right now, and we were just kind of keeping our arms loose and getting ready for the first day of summer camp or spring 2.0. And an older gentleman basically came out and told us that we shouldn't be playing catch in the street. We were going to get hit by a car, and we said, well, we would move if a car came, and then he proceeded to get a little upset at us. So we just decided to take our throwing somewhere else. But it was kind of funny just going back to being a kid and playing catch in the street, and then all of a sudden here comes the old neighbor, and he's not happy we're playing catch. So it was just kind of one of those moments to take you back to when you were 12 and getting yelled at by people.
I was just about to say, right? It's like you're a 12-year-old kid again, but you're 27 years old. Did you ever tell him who you were? Did you say, hey, man, I'm a professional baseball player? Anything like that?
No, both Ben and I just kind of chuckled and were like, all right, well, I guess we'll just go play catch on the next street over. And we did, and then no one else yelled at us there. So obviously one street up is obviously the place to be.
that is a great story. Thanks for sharing. So let's fly back to September 2nd of last year when you were traded to the Brewers. I mean, obviously playing for the Yankees organization is pretty darn cool, but you're a Wisconsin kid. When you got that phone call that you were going to Milwaukee, what was that like? I imagine, like you said at the top, when you saw your name on that roster for spring training 2.0, but this might have been a little bit different, I imagine, right?
Yeah, this was that call was definitely something that I'll never forget. It was just kind of it was like almost like one of those moments where you don't believe, you actually think someone's like playing a joke on you or lying to you about it, because when I got it and I was told I was traded, it was like literally just I didn't believe that I was gonna come back and play and hopefully play in Milwaukee at some point in time, and even like calling my family and friends and all my buddies that I played with at that point, they're like, "No way, you're playing a joke on us. This is not real. You're messing with us." And it was just kind of one of those moments where I know that I'll never forget it, and I know my family won't, and friends won't either.
And I bet it's got to be. I mean, it's a childhood dream essentially that you're living out right now. So it's pretty darn neat. But let's go back to those Stevens Point days, because I'm sitting at the University of Stevens Point right now. So I got to throw some questions at you. What was that like? I mean, obviously a D3 guy, then getting drafted, and now you're making the most of it playing for your home state team. I mean, it's been quite a journey for you. But take me back to those Point days. Some of the things you learned here, and some of the development you had here.
Yeah, I mean, like playing at Stevens Point was, I mean, some of the best years of my life. I look at the 3 years that I was there, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. Just the brothers that you played with and teammates and like the friendships that I have from there are just some of the greatest things. But just learning from well, now Jersley is the coach, but he was my assistant coach when I was there, Jeremy Jersley, and then Pat Bloom was the head coach there. And just the mental strength that they preach to us. I mean, when you're playing D3 ball, you're not playing on a scholarship. You're not going to play baseball for kind of like your lifestyle in college. It's more of just a you know what, you're going to school, you're going to get a degree, you're playing baseball with it. Just you're lucky to get to play hopefully 4 more years of baseball in your childhood, and then you're going to move on to a real job in life. I was just lucky enough to be able to play with the guys that I did, and then obviously having Zimmerman go through there, it was kind of a crazy thing. That, I mean, when you go in, you're like, well, maybe I could be the next Jordan Zimmerman, right. And obviously that's not an easy feat to do, and I just was lucky enough that I got enough looks and I threw well in the right situations, and somebody decided to take me.
And I was just about to ask about Jordan Zimmerman. Obviously, now the field named after him, as the scoreboard indicates. But what's your relationship like with him? I know there's at least somewhat of one, right?
Yeah, I mean, he and I text every once in a while and talk every once in a while just to see how each one of us is doing, how each one of us is feeling. We're both big outdoorsmen, so he always is asking me about deer hunting, or I'm asking about how his deer hunting was going, how ice fishing's going. And we're just checking in. We got to meet each other a few times when I was in college, and then after college a little bit. But obviously he's from about 2.5 hours from me, hometown wise. So we don't get to see each other that often, but just keeping basically in contact enough where to see how each other are feeling and doing is, it's good. Yeah. I mean, he's a great guy, and he just has that Wisconsin mindset like the rest of us.
Absolutely, my friend. JP Feyereisen, my guest. Couple more for you, JP. Again, appreciate the time. I got to ask, man, we always know the fastball's looking good on you. How's the slider looking in this weird spring training 2.0? How's everything feeling coming off the mound?
Good. Actually, breaking ball feels really good. It's nice to throw in humidity actually in spring training rather than Arizona's dry air, and it's a little different. I mean, when you're in this humidity, you get the real feel of the baseball and how it's going to move. And so, yeah, everything feels really good. My body feels really good, and my arm's ready to go.
That's awesome to hear, man. And my last one for you is Craig Counsell. I assume you've gotten to meet Counsell a bit and chat with him a bit this offseason. How's he feeling about the squad? How are you feeling about the squad as we approach opening day? We're almost there, man. We're almost out of the dark days of no baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me and everyone else on our team, I think we're feeling good about this year. I mean, for starting pitching, relievers, our pitching staff's going to be really good, and then obviously you look at our lineup and it's loaded. I mean, we have bats up and down the whole lineup that are hopefully we're going to put up a lot of runs, and it's going to be fun. I mean, hopefully we hear Uke yelling something like "going, going, gone" or something quite often on the radio, because I mean, who doesn't love hearing Euchre yell that stuff, right?
I think that might be what I miss the most about baseball, is listening to Uke. But I got to ask you before I let you go, JP, the designated hitter now in the National League for this season. What is your initial takeaway and thoughts on that?
I mean, for me, since I've been in the American League the entire time,
right,
through my minor league stint, it hasn't really affected me. But yeah, it was a possibility of chance of maybe, just maybe, I could get one AB in my professional career, but it doesn't look like this year is going to happen. So, which is fine. It's good, and it actually puts another one of our stud bats in the lineup anyway. So it's going to be. I mean, I think for us, it's definitely going to help us out, because we have so many hitters that we can choose from to put in that designated hitter position.
When's the last time you got an AB? I couldn't find it.
I actually got 2 at-bats in college my freshman year at Stevens Point in a spring game down in Florida. I had to sack bunt on my first one, and I got it down and moved the runners over, and then I came up with bases loaded and got a single for 2 RBIs, and that's my college career of hitting.
We'll take that last AB, man. That's not a horrible way to get out of the hitting game, JP.
No, it's definitely not the worst way to go out, for sure.
Well, JP, really appreciate the time. You stay healthy, my friend, and we're really looking forward to getting some baseball back. All right, you be good.
All right, thank you very much, Alex.
That's JP Feyereisen, right-handed pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, joining us here on the Alex Strouf Show. Great stuff from him, man. He's got a bat. Now I almost wish they wouldn't add the DH to the NL just so we could see him later this 60-game season. But really appreciate his time. Some great insight from JP. We've got a clip we'd like to show you. As Jill says, great go, JP, and we really appreciate his time. But instead of our normal break, I did an appearance on the Ramblin Matt Ramage Podcast last week. So we've got a short clip from there, my appearance on there. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, but really good stuff with Matt Ramage. If you're not familiar with Matt, one of the funniest guys in Green Bay, I'd argue. So here's that clip, and on the other side, we will wrap up Tuesday's show. This is the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central.
Voice. I got eyes. I do the eyes.
That's what you got going for you.
Yeah, which isn't great for podcasts. That's why I'm doing video too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the audio doesn't pick up the where. I don't know where you're looking. First off, yeah. But second off, yeah.
I'm talking to somebody at work and they're like looking around. I just cover one eye. I'm like, all right, me and you right here. That's what we're doing. Like at the gas station, people don't know. I remember doing concessions for my kids, like baseball tournament, basketball tournament, stuff, and people don't know me, so they'll come up and they'll be like, "I'd like a burger or whatever," and I'll be like, "All right," and they'll be like, looking. Nobody knows whose turn it is, so I just cover it up. Me and you. Come on, what do you want? Burger? What are we doing? Because they don't know. They're looking around.
Burger? What do you want?
I'm like, what do you want? And the guy over there is like, I'll have a burger. I'm like, I ain't talking to you. So
that's classic. That's classic.
So do you think you could be a commentator? Like, let's say it wouldn't be a big time right away. Obviously, you got to take steps or whatever. But let's say whatever type of league asked you, we want you to commentate our baseball team or whatever. Could you do it?
I could do it, yeah, but that's not really where my passion is, right? I love play-by-play. I do play-by-play. I'm the voice of the Green Bay Blizzard. I'm sure who you know.
Actually, I didn't. I know that.
Well, now you do.
I knew that. I should know that. I shouldn't have even admitted that. But like, yeah, of course I knew that. I know that Kyle does the the camera work for them.
Yeah, he does some so that's how Kyle and I met. Kyle Hoffenbecker, I imagine some people that watch you and listen to you know who that is. He's the producer of my show, but we met through the Blizzard. Yeah, so I was the play-by-play commentator in 2019. Was going to come back again this year, and obviously their season didn't happen. So we'll see if I do it next year. It depends what opportunities are lined up for me at that point. But yeah, it was really cool. And so yeah, I mean, I love play-by-play, but it's more of a hobby for me, where sports talk radio and really analyzing and having conversations with people that know more than me is really my thing that I love to do. So I think I could do it, right? I believe in myself. So I don't think I could do it like the likes of Bob Costas and Kevin Harlan and Brian Anderson, but I could do I think I could do a decent job. Yeah,
I think you could. But I was going to ask you, because I didn't realize that you were the voice of the Blizzard. That threw me off a little bit. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you to if they asked you to be the voice of the Packers, and we run a fake play, and then you voice it, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, but what's the fake play? What are we doing?
No, we talk about it first. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
Let's say Aaron Jones gets the ball. He breaks a tackle, let's say the 40-yard line, and he runs it in for a touchdown, and then you just make some shit up. Make it – this might be stupid.
All right. I got it.
I want to hear it. I want to hear what you do. You can just make whatever your imagination says. But Aaron Jones –
all right. Here we go. So 2nd and 8 at the Detroit 42. Rodgers steps under center in the I formation. Takes the snap from Lindsley, hands it off to Jones, who cuts between the B gap. Up to the 40-yard line, he flips it back to Rodgers. It's a flea flicker. Rodgers finds Devontae Adams up the near side. 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Packers.
Dude,
Something
that's
like that, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that is fantastic.
I mean, I'm no Wayne Larrivee. I'm no Joe Buck, but I can make something up in my weird head, right? Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. That's better than what I had.
So there you go. That is a clip from the Ramblin Matt Ramage Podcast, which is out wherever you get your podcast. It's 90-minute conversation. I mean, we went long, had a few drinks in us. Really fun time. I think it was on last Friday or last Thursday night. So it definitely was a lot of fun with Matt. You're laughing. You're laughing over there. You found that entertaining. I'm glad, Kyle. I'm glad you found it entertaining.
I mean, that is like, wow. I mean, I was actually I messaged Matt during the video and told him that I was gonna put it on. And I'm just sitting here. You guys are so good together. Like you guys, maybe the alcohol had a little bit to do with it, but
yeah, I mean, I don't even think I had a drink in me yet. I think that was very early. I had 3 throughout, but he probably had like 6 of them. Yeah,
I'm gonna watch it. I have it downloaded. I'll listen to it on my way to and from work. Which
there you go.
I need a little energy in me on my way going to work at.
Well, hopefully we can provide with our Friday shenanigans or what. I don't remember when we recorded that. I think it was Friday. It might have been Thursday. But it was a lot of fun. So thanks to Matt for having me on his podcast. He did a guest appearance a few weeks back on here, and we'll have him back. He's always chiming in. He actually just chimed in, I believe, in the comment section. Yeah, there he is. He said I started early.
There you go. Look at that.
So anyway, let's wrap it up. Big thanks to JP Feyereisen and Paul Bretl for joining today. Both just brought some great stuff. JP brought his fan section, I see, over on Facebook, as quite a few comments chiming in. So we appreciate everybody tuning in as JP is in. He called it summer camp, so I think I'm going to continue to. But I kind of like spring training 2.0. I've come around in the last 2 hours.
Well, I've heard midsummer training.
Okay, but I think the actual title the MLB is using is Spring Training 2.0 because obviously, and he referenced it, they had their original spring training, at least a little bit of it, before they were cut off due to COVID. But now this is their second prep time for the 2020 season. So it's 2.0, but it's summer. So I don't know. I don't know what to call it. But nonetheless, so big thanks to those guys once again for joining us today. Let's go to our Tuesday thoughts, Kyle.
Actually, I got to switch the banner from Thursday to Tuesday, so bear with me.
bearing with you. Yeah, or we just don't need a banner. I mean,
Oh, there you go. I gotta put it in. It makes it look nicer.
There you go. All right, go ahead.
I actually don't have one, so it's up to you. I know you got one.
I do have one. Yeah. So Magic Johnson, obviously is we know who he is, but
no, who is
he?
Yes,
yes. Shut up. So he has a Twitter account, as most people do, and he every tweet he sends out is a congratulations tweet. Now, like he will just tweet out a sentence that we all already knew. So I reference a June 3rd, 23rd tweet. The Lakers losing Avery Bradley is a tough loss and will make it more difficult for them to win the NBA championship. Okay. Thanks, Magic. And last night we had congratulations to Patrick Mahomes on his record-breaking $450 million deal, which could go up to $503 million with incentives. And pardon my take from Barstool Sports, PFT commenter and Big Cat, Dan Katz. They talk a lot about these tweets, but it wasn't until last night that I really recognized what they were referring to, because all of his tweets are just, they're written out by somebody else. He tells them what he wants to say, but they don't take the initiative to go ahead and say, hey, Patrick, proud of you, happy for you. Ended on that note. They ended on the note of, which could get up to $503 million with incentives. I just love Magic Johnson's Twitter because it never ends with like a personal note or good job, buddy. It always ends with, this is the implication, which we already know the implication from what the tweet began with, right? Avery Bradley opting out, we know it's going to make it a little bit tougher for the Lakers, but he goes ahead and throws it in there, which I guess we can appreciate. I don't know. Magic Johnson's Twitter feed is a place of wonderfulness.
I personally don't have any issue with it, but I mean, I understand it. It kind of reminds me of a news channel tweeting out something. It's like, here's the facts, and that's it.
Right. It's quite hilarious.
I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know. You're kind of picking on him. I kind of feel bad, but
you know what? I think Magic Johnson won't get too offended if I pick on him a little bit. I think of all people, if I pick on Magic Johnson, he will have the thick enough skin to deal with me, a 21-year-old scrawny kid who he could still beat in a fist fight at however old he is, 60 years old. I don't think he'll get too angry with me for picking on him a little bit. His Twitter feed does always make me laugh, though. So that is my Tuesday thought. Thursday, big show ahead once again. We will have good guests, of course, as we always do. Jimmy Christensen.
I was gonna say Jimmy Christensen. I during the show I actually confirmed it. He will be on at 3:30 p.m. on Thursday.
And so he has an interview with Chandon Sullivan, the Packers cornerback, dropping, I believe, today. So we'll have a lot of good stuff to chat with Jimmy. I had him on a different show. I believe it was back around draft time, back in April, that I chatted with Jimmy. So I've chatted with Jimmy before. Excited to chat with Jimmy again. One of my favorite Packer guys in the game, in fact. So really excited to talk some Packers with Jimmy on Thursday. And, of course, we'll have fight night. So we introduced that topic once again. If you missed it, best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio in the NFL. I went with New Orleans. So that is your fight night topic for this week. Feel free to get at us wherever you can get at us. We'll know what you're talking about. And somebody will come on debate/discuss that with me. And, of course, we'll always have some more fun conversations with whoever jumps on the guest line. So for JP Feyereisen, for Paul Bretl, for producer Kyle, my name is Alex. I really appreciate you stopping by. And I promised Kyle I would play this horrible audio. So if he can beat me to cutting this off, I won't play it. But I got to play this wonderful.
I'll let you play it.
This wonderful musical creation from my good friend Chuck, who just randomly sent me at 1 a.m. last night. And this is how we will leave. Thanks so much for stopping by today. We will see you on Thursday. Peace.
So bad.
Alex Strouf Show on Cream City Central. It's the Alex Strouf Show.